So what has God given you? That is a question that we're going to be exploring on this live Bible study recording. And the book that we're going to be looking at is Luke 19, verse 26. So please make sure you pay attention, you watch all the way to the end, because there are some good questions by some of the listeners. So enjoy the video. God bless you. Bye. Luke 19, verse 26 says, "Yes," the king replied. This is Jesus speaking. He's sharing a parable, okay? We're going to get into that later. I just want to really read the verse that we're going to discuss. And then Jesus said, "And to those who use well what they're given, even more will be given. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away from them." Now, you can sit down. Take a seat if you stood up. Now, here in these words, Jesus is sharing a parable. It's a parable about, let me flip it. He says, Jesus tells a parable of the kings and 10 servants. So in here, Jesus talks about that, hey, this new coming king, he gives people, a certain amount of money to invest or do something with it, right? And this is the end of the parable, right? Jesus said, and again, there's other stories, other parables in the Bible about a similar lesson, right? About do something with what you're given. And I just want to draw your attention. Like if you're here today, right? If you're here on TikTok, you're here on Instagram, and Discord. Because here's the word that really pop out at me when I was reading this. I was reading this yesterday morning. And as I was reading this, I read, okay, "And to those who use well what they're given, even more will be given." Like the word given just popped out and screamed at me. So I stopped. The way I read the Bible, if I find something that makes me stop or something that screams at me like, "Louis, pay attention at this," I stop. I don't read no more. So the word given. So here's a question I have for you. This is pretty straightforward, folks. Like, what have you been given? Right? Naga, what have you been given? You're here in Discord. What have you been given? Because it is very important for us to almost do an inventory, an assessment, and look at what have we been given. Because let me tell you, here, this world, society, may present you an idea of what truly matters that you've been given, or even the opposite of what you have earned. Jesus is talking about to those who do well with what they've been given, even more will be given. So as you're here, like Danny, Ian, A.U. Martinez, MS Eunice, here, Bugmug, what have you been given? When I do my inventory of what have I been given, I think about, I've been given, life. I've been given eyesight. I can hear. I can speak. I can walk. I can think. I can write. I can do many other things. I can run. I can be kind. I can be generous. So I want you to consider what has been given to you and what are you doing with that? Because let me tell you that here, 2022, the idea that gets pushed out there is, first, you have to earn everything. You have to earn it. You have to work hard. But did you have to work hard to be born? Did you have to work hard? Do you have to work hard to be able to say thank you? Do you have to work hard to tell somebody, how are you doing? Do you have to work hard in order to be kind to your neighbor, to love your parents, to respect your friends, to treat those that have opposite views than you, to treat them with dignity and respect? Is that something you have to work hard? Like, God's given us a lot. If you're here on TikTok, on Instagram, on Discord, and YouTube, you're watching this, chances are that you've been given a lot. And what are you doing with what you're given? And I'm saying this to you, not to accuse you of not using your gifts to the max. I'm just reading what Jesus is saying. That's all I'm doing. And that's why I started the Bible study with Jesus and the Bible is a teacher, right? This is what he said. "And to those who use well what they're given." Are you, Mark, are you using well your life? A.U. Martinez, are you using well your health, your voice, your ability to write, to speak? Are you using it well? We don't need to work hard in order to live. Like, we are alive right now. We have almost the whole world at our disposal here in our hands with all the technology. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to be able to be kind to one another, to love your neighbor as you love yourself, to trust in Christ, to speak kindly to those who may be mean to you, to show the love of God to everybody that comes into your life. You don't need to have a degree in any of this. I think it's like a diploma, yeah. Because let me tell you, the way that society has been shaped by Satan, he's the one ruling the world, is that, if you don't have a lot of money, if you don't have a lot of power, if you don't have a lot of influence, a lot of followers, if you don't have a lot of influence, you don't have a lot of cars, fame, material belongings, that you don't make a difference, that you don't matter, right? If you look at social media, you look at Hollywood, you look at mainstream media, they idolize those who have achieved a certain level of financial success, which, hey, there is room for that, but that's not the key of it all. But in order for you to use well, I don't know what happened here. Something happened to my TikTok. It disappeared. That you don't need all these things in order for you to make a difference. For those who use well what they're given, you've been given so much that you didn't have to work for. And that's an inventory that is very important for us to do consistently. Because again, and I want to impress this upon you, a lot of times we think that what matters most is what we have earned through hard work, whether that is your diploma, where there is the money you've earned. And God tells us, Jesus tells us that we live by grace, we live by faith, and faith is given. Like that hope is given, freely given. Like Jesus died for us freely, for us to accept it, those who want it. What's been given to you, and what are you doing with it? Because let me tell you, there is somebody out there, there's some people out there that they don't need a pastor, they don't need a preacher, they don't need a theologian. They need a common folk to be kind, to say thank you, to open a door, to say, hey, let me pay for this meal, or to say, let me pray for you, or what's happening? Are you okay? Or sometimes even just to listen. Just like, you know what? Let me hear you out. What's happening? You don't need much. So what have you been given? Because Jesus tells us that if you use well what you've been given, and again, and I want to remind you, want to impress this upon you, you've been given this to you. Not that you earned it. Not that you're like, oh, I worked so hard, this is mine. Oh, my life is so good, this is mine because of my work. Really? I will argue that point all day, because there's so many things in living that is so much out of your control, that you can work so hard at something. Even your diploma, even your career, even your car, even your house. If those things are of whole value to you, and you're like, man, I have earned this because of my hard work. Your hard work doesn't guarantee you anything. There are so many other pieces outside of your control that need to fall into place in order for you to receive or have or achieve certain things. So what have you been given? What have you been given? Because Jesus tells us that if you don't use well what you've been given, even what little you have will be taken away. What would you do if your eyesight's taken away? What will you do if your legs are taken away? If your ability to hear, your ability to use your hands, your ability to speak? What would you do? Use well. Jesus says, to those who use well what they've been given, even more will be given. So can you imagine what's it like to have more of what you've been given already? See, Rosie, every good and perfect gift is from the Father. 100%. Yeah, give a thumbs up to that. Yep. So let's use them. There's people hurting out there. People hungry for the truth. And Naga can't do it alone. I can't do it alone. Rosie can't do it alone. The more that we step into this, knowing that, hey, God has given me certain gifts, certain talents, certain abilities, certain desires, that it's important for us to start using them. You just don't know the impact that you may bring in someone's life just by bringing yourself, bringing the love of God that you have, and that's it. You don't need a pulpit. Actually, wherever you go, that's your pulpit. Wherever you go, that's your pulpit. You don't need to have a church. You don't need to have a congregation. You don't need to have 100,000 followers. You know, you have people following you all day, every day. Wherever you go, somebody's following you because they're watching. What are you doing with what you've been given? It's time, y'all. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at what's happening around us. So as you and I begin to lean in to what God has given us, the fruits are out there. Your brothers and sisters need you. This just happens to be a platform that I use. What is your platform? Is it work? Is it school? Is it your family? Is it your neighbors? I don't know what it is, but you've been given something. Like given that you didn't have to earn or fight for it. You've been given. And as you start walking life with a desire of honoring God, of trusting the way, the truth, and the life that's Christ, you have many opportunities to share that gift because you've been given something. You have been given something. Don't waste it. Don't waste it. It will be a shame. It will be a shame. So with that, I am complete, and I'm hoping that this was valuable to you. Like I said, this is going to be very short and straight to the point. If you have any questions, any requests for prayers or anything of that sort, feel free. I'm here checking on Discord on the no mic zone, see if I see anybody. Okay. Nope.
One of them was, how do you, you said that Jesus says that those who use well, more will be given. How does God define love?
Man, that is such a good question. And let's not forget about this one. Somebody here asked, how do I give or show mercy? Let's hold on to that. Zelda Sunflower. Let's answer this question real quick. So how does God define well? Here's what I think of what God defines as well. If I line it up with scripture and I look at this history of what Jesus did, what did Jesus do? Like, he listened to people. He healed the sick. He comforted those that were in need of help. He treated kids with love. He was kind. He was generous. And you start seeing, there's a trail of what does God consider well, because it's not always. Here's something that unfortunately Christians get lost in, is the results. that you do something and you think, okay, let me do this well, right? Let me do this as if God was right there in your presence. That's another way to measure what is doing it well. Like if God was in front of me, how would I do this? What would I say? How would I behave? That will help you define what well is. Now, but here's the kicker. Is that sometimes we can be doing something and we want a certain result, and we get so lost in the result that we forget that when we are embarking into a journey of achieving something or doing something for somebody, it is not so much about the result. It's about who are you becoming in the journey. Like God is interested a lot more in your character than results. God can change anything. God can transform any result, right? Like there's somebody that talks about, I forgot how the story goes. It's like a parable that says that this guy had two sons and he had like a horse stable. And I'm paraphrasing this story, okay? But he says that, okay, the guy had a bunch of horses and two sons. One son starts riding one of the horses, and the son falls down, breaks his back, or something happens to him. And one of the neighbors comes by and says, man, that's what a shame that your son got hurt and your horse, something happened to the horse. The point of the story is that there always could be a positive or a negative after something happens. And it's like a trail. So God can transform any circumstance into positive, but the question always is like, how are you responding? Like, what is your character? And you think about the life of Job, this guy went through everything, the whole journey, from having it all to losing it all and to regaining it again. And it's like, who are you becoming as you're aiming to doing things well? If you get lost in the result, and if you don't get the result that you want, that's when you get disgruntled, you get disappointed, you get upset, you get, angry because, you think, oh man, I did all this and I didn't see the fruits. It's not about the fruits, but like, how is God changing your heart? How are you being moved? How are you being transformed? What are you learning? What are you shedding? Right? What are you shedding? Like, how are you being sculpted? Sometimes that chisel that God uses in order to shape our life is not pleasurable, but it's necessary. So hopefully that answers your question of how do I think God defines well? Yeah, and that was the other question. It was it was by Zelda, right? It was how do I show or give mercy? Just look at what Jesus did. It's pretty simple. Now, if you want to be more specific, which I invite you to, we talked about this on probably a few weeks ago. The importance of being specific, right? Oh, that's help. Okay, awesome. But Zelda, if you don't mind being more specific, because that question is very broad. Let me give you an example. It was let me see. I'm looking here in the Bible because we talked about it. It was recently. Yes, it was the beggar. I think it was Bartholomew, right? That he sees Jesus and he's telling Jesus, like, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me, right? And he's screaming this out loud in front of people, and people say, hey, shut up. And eventually people Jesus sees him and say, hey, bring him to me, right? Okay, I don't know how to be more specific in that question. No, okay, so Zelda, here's what I'm trying to say. You might be as specific as you can. I don't know if there's a specific circumstance to which you want to apply mercy. Does that make sense? Or if you're just talking in general. Because listen to the story of the parable. Not a parable, it was a real life event. And this blind guy is asking Jesus, please have mercy on me. Have mercy on me. Son of David, have mercy on me. Blasting it all out. And when he is brought to Jesus, guess what Jesus said? What do you want me to do for you? That is very specific, right? Sometimes we're so broad, right? So broad. And Jesus asked him, what do you want me to do for you? Earlier, the guy was saying, have mercy on me. But what does mercy mean? What does mercy mean? What? Son of David, have mercy on me. He's like, listen, bro, like what you talking about? What do you want me to do for you? And that's when the guy was like, oh, snap. Okay, I want to see. See how specific that was? And that's when Jesus said, your faith has healed you. So, Zelda, that's why I invite you. Not sure if you're asking the question just for general discussion, which is great, or if you may have a specific circumstance in your life in which, man, how do I show mercy to my sister? Or how should I show mercy to myself? Or how should I, be kind or merciful to my neighbor? I am not sure. Because if you were more specific, maybe we can navigate this and walk this together and see what does God teaches all of us, all right? But that's a good question. To give you an idea of what I think about when we say doing it well, I think about creation. When God said, this is good, that's creation. When he brought life. So are our actions bringing life, right? Are they life-giving, or are they suffocating life, right? It's only something that us as doing our actions and our deeds can tell. Is my language life-giving? Or is it like, man, like just choking people out with the way I speak, the way I treat others. God said it was good. God said all creation said it was good. So I think about, the beauty in creation that was done well. And here's something about something done well is that there's tremendous amount of order in creation. Scientists have done the math that some small percentage one way and there's no universe. There's no life. There was only one way to make this work and God made it so. Anything else outside of, I was reading an article a while back that if the gravity, this is what scientists found, that if the gravity was 1/billionth of an ounce too much, no creation, no life. 1/billionth of an ounce of too much gravity one way or the other. That might be, mistaking the number specifically, but I remember that number. It was like 1/billionth of an ounce. I was like, billionth of an ounce? I don't even know what that looks like, of an ounce. Can you imagine the precision? Imagine the order? So when I think of that, and I have another teaching that I want to do on this, but I'm just going to touch on it right now. So if the creator of the universe created a reality with so much precision that 1/billionth of an ounce is enough to get rid of it all, of the whole thing not working, wouldn't it be reasonable that that creator would also have a certain desire for our behavior that's also that precise, that's also that specific, that's listen, this is how it works. This is how it works. Look at this universe. It works in the specific order. Your behavior, the way you act, the way you speak, the things that you say, what you don't do, what you do, it has to work this way. This is the way. It just makes sense. It doesn't make any sense to think that a creator, a designer, an engineer that created all of this will be like, these creatures that I made, let them do whatever the hell they want. It doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. It's not congruent with the character of the creator. To create a universe with so much order and precision, to then say to the creatures that are going to perhaps maintain this creation, for them that inheriting the responsibility of maintaining the world and subdue it, for them to be like, you guys do whatever you want. It don't matter. No, it doesn't make any sense. It has to. It makes sense that the same character follows or applies to us. Hey, listen, this creation is orderly, then you must be orderly. But we're not. That's what we have, the results that we have right now, which our relationship with nature, relationship with God, relationship with each other, it's out of sync, it's out of whack, because we brought chaos by our decisions. But there's hope. Okay, here we go. Got a question. Howdy, what are we talking about? Hey, jelly and peanuts. Well, we were reading the book of Luke 19, verse 26, the parable of, let me tell you, it was the parable of, kind of like the talents. Jesus tells the parable of the kings and 10 servants. That's what we were talking about. So the question was, what have you been given? And by the way, thank you for asking, So the question that we've been asking folks and sort of reflecting each other is what have we been given? Jesus said here in verse 26, verse 19, verse 26, he said, and to those who use well what they're given, right, even more will be given. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. So we are reminding ourselves, and we're having this conversation to do an inventory of what we've been given and what do we consider, what do we think we've been given? Because society has us believe that we either have been given a terrible life, a horrible experience, or just difficulties and hardships, and that's what we think we've been given. But when you actually do a thorough inventory, you realize that, man, we've been given so much more. So jelly and peanut, hopefully that answers your question. Thank you for asking, by the way, and thank you for being here. You could have been anywhere else. Okay, yeah, so here's my, what I want you to consider is that quite a few, not just but one thing is, how often are you in conversation with this individual? Is it somebody in passing, or you're speaking about there's a certain group of people that's what they always say? Because it's going to vary, and we've talked about this before, perhaps you have not been here, and is the idea that sometimes, believers and followers of Christ, they fall into the trap of wanting to change and transform everybody they meet. Okay. And that is a tremendous burden to carry. And more importantly, you cannot change anybody. Neither can Naga, neither can I, neither can your pastor or anybody. You cannot change them. They have to make a willful decision. You can perhaps influence them by the way you live, by you treat them, the way you treat them, and so on. So that's my first point, that I want to make sure that you are aware of. Because if somebody's just, if they feel, hey, I believe in God, but I don't believe in religion, then you be that light. You live out the principles. You walk the way, and he or she will start noticing things. Sometimes we want to equip ourselves with so many philosophical arguments on how to, win an argument, right? That we forget that it is about a relationship, and that allows somebody to see God through the way that you live. So hopefully that makes sense. So, but if you want to have I gotta say, a philosophical argument with somebody, yeah, there's always ways, of revealing the truth to somebody that says, yeah, I believe in God, but I'm just not religious. Which you kind of nail it right in the head. We say, it's not about religion. It's about, actually, you will even go before you will go a step before that. When somebody says, I believe in God, you stop right there. It's like, what do you mean by God, right? Because there's some people out there that have an idea of what God is, and it's not really the God of the Bible. So if somebody tells, yeah, I believe in God, just ask them, like, what do you mean by God? And truly listen to them, because they could be believing in a God that is not at all the God of the Bible. Doesn't resemble anything of what you may think or you may know God is. So you got to start there. It's all about having clarity on what somebody's saying and what they mean by what they're saying. Because you can start, then you go in circles. You will not get anywhere. Because some people have an intellectual objection. Some people have a moral objection. They're like, no, God's done it wrong, so I don't believe in God, or I would have done it a different way. I don't like the way this stuff is. It's not a real God, and so on. And if they have a moral objection, they have free will. They can choose to do that, and that's where a relationship is what transforms somebody. And relationship takes time, and God is the one that can truly change somebody in a heartbeat or in a long process. So do not carry that burden of like, oh man, I want to change them. I want to let them know how it is. I want to tell them about Jesus Christ. Tell them about Jesus by living the way Jesus lived. I live it. I live it out. Hopefully that answered the question. Thank you for your time, for your attention. And like Naga said, hopefully these words resonate with you. Yeah, you do an inventory of what has God given you, and are you using it well so it doesn't get taken away. That's Jesus saying it on a parable, and Jesus is very intentional with his words. It's not just saying words to say them. So use what you have. You have a lot.